when I do that. So if you just want to relax there on your minute. And we are anticipating the dean of our college coming. It was an honor. And then, of course, we have our department chair, Professor Damon. And we have the faculty of art education, second year and second day that you already know, and I'm having a wonderful time getting to know. And then visiting colleagues, retired, but in the same status basically that I am, Dr. Ralph Brown. And so we welcome them. They came up from, he and Karen, his spouse came up from Cincinnati, so they came through the countryside a bit. And probably one of our most esteemed groups here, or always has been to me, and that is the art education students. I look out there and the arts have always survived, so don't ever let yourself fall into that category where you think, oh, I might not get a job. First of all, there only needs to be one job out there. You just need to make sure you get it. And the arts have always sustained themselves. There's no other discipline in the world that has 36,000 years of documented history. So they will survive, and it's our responsibility to be custodians of them during that time. So I consider it a privilege to know you, and I just am so excited that the future just looks so bright as I look into each one of your faces. So I wanted to, Betty Michael is still living, and she lives in Florida, and so her health has prevented her from coming, and her daughter, they have a daughter and son. But John passed away, and I want to tell you, when I came to Miami, John Michael was my advisor. And so on my first attempt, because I transferred, I had 2 years at the University of Cincinnati, and I came up here because Miami had a good art education program. And so I met him. And once you knew John, and he befriended you, and then that was almost instantly. You could find yourself very embarrassed. Once I invited him to the art appreciation class, because I always say, because I want the students to meet him. This is after he retired. He comes in with his professional genealogy that traced them through me, and me through him, and he through Victor Lowenfeld, and on and on. And he could just be almost effusive about how wonderful the students are and the wonderful things they've done. The reason I tell you about the genealogy is because John was an historian, and he had a wonderful sense of how things related in history, and the importance of context and that sort of thing. So early on, he and Betty endowed the lecture series, and it is the greatest single archive of its kind in the world. And so we actually have people who come from all over the world to use it for research database. So, and Dr. Stokrocki is our 36th participant. And it's for a person that's called in who's either has retired or is near retirement. So that's who is invited to the series. The first in the series is Victor Lowenfeld, as you see, and these are all listed on the back. Victor Lowenfeld, and I don't know, I never asked him, and I never had an opportunity, but I'm wondering if that's where the seed of the lecture series came from, is because he had actually recorded this autobiographical lecture, I believe, in his class with Victor Lowenfeld at Penn State, because he just died for work there. So it starts the series, And then the second person to come in was Edwin Ziegfeld, who was the president of the International Society through Education, NCO, which you'll know about eventually. And I would encourage you as you affiliate with your professional organizations that you join out into it. It gets to your colleagues in around the world, and those of you who do the Second Life this morning know that you can go see them and meet with them and that sort of thing. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background because I knew John Michael personally, and Ralph was like a second son, I think, to them. You and Karen, as I recall. But Ralph worked with him for a very long time. And so anyway, I just want to give you a little bit of background. And that collection, should you want to look at any of it, many of the lectures appear in Dr. Ralph's book. Some famous art educators, I'm trying to pull that off the top of my head. Autobiographies of some art educators. And so, anyway, you can look at that. He's here, you can talk to him about the experience he had in writing that. And so you have resources, but you will actually be able to hear those people. That's a great research paper if you have to report on something. You can actually, she's being paid now, will be her lecture, and it's all there, clear back. So it's just a wonderful place to do that. So keep that in mind. I would like to finally here get around to introducing our speaker. I'm not going to say that much other than to say that probably one of the greatest blessings of my life is that I, for a very long time, been calling Mary Stokrocki my friend, my very good friend. And we've traveled a lot of miles together alongside. Although I haven't done all of her international stuff that she's done. She's over by the world. I'm sort of in the United States, and I know I'm. But anyway, she's going to tell you about that, and she has lots of places to show you and things to say. So, Dr. Mary L.
Thank you, Julie and Ralph, for nominating me. It's quite an honor. And I don't know if I deserved it, but I have to sing for my supper now. So, where do I come from? Okay. Born in Poughkeepsie, New York. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Poughkeepsie. On the Hudson River. And Stokrocki means daisy in Polish. Middle-class family. And that shows you how I started out. Poughkeepsie was famous originally because it was the second capital of New York State. And here it is in the 1920s. And it's gone through a change, but it really was very historical and beautiful at one time. My mom and dad, my grandmother, Mary Virago Docio, died when my mother was only 12 years old. And that loss devastated her. One of the younger kids of about a family of 10 children. She lived with her older brother, Joe. She quit school at 16 and worked in a meatpacking plant. She met my father, who lived across the street from her. And her brothers used to tease her about, she goes to Lucy, you're going to go to the altar. Walter, you're going to take him to the altar. That's my father's name. But they would tease her mercifully about that. Well, he joined the Army in 1940. He was already working for IBM, because IBM was a new company then. He was a tool die maker. Then the war came, and he went in as a bombardier navigator and officer. Would you believe They married, and my mom followed him around to all the army bases and out to Nevada, where he trained Chiang Kai-shek's troops. And when I was in Taiwan a couple of years ago on Fulbright, they were really surprised. They had no idea that Chiang Kai-shek was over here in this country. So in some history, a lot of it's covered up. Here's IBM, and it's right on the Hudson River. All my uncles worked for them. My nephews are computer nerds, and they work for IBM too. I worked one summer for IBM, analyzing and repairing computer boards when they used to have a lot of copper wiring, and that was a lot of fun. Here I am as a little girl, and my dad pushing us out to the Catskill Game Farm, and a place we used to go all the time. And I'm named after both of my grandmothers, Mary and two Marys on either side. You know, my background is not anything exciting. It's Catholic schools most of the time. And here at the Holy Trinity Elementary School, like most kids, I decorated bulletin boards, participated in the Girl Scouts, and sang in the choir. My mom worked for the nuns. She would iron their clothes. Now, my dad put a subscription to a Around the World program. This is something that I remember that really influenced me. This is the version from Iran. And I kept these all my whole life. They're sticker books. And I really enjoyed them. Would you believe, in 1976, I traveled to Turkey and Iran with a boyfriend. Now, this was before Shah was deposed. Started in Germany, bought a Volkswagen, my Volkswagen, and traveled all the way down. I didn't know it was going to Iran, but that's where we ended up. And that's where I started really loving carpets. I bought a carpet there, one of the prayer carpets. And I had some background in weaving, and so I knew a lot about these things. And we bought and sold them. And he was buying meerschaum pipes with the carved heads. And then we went underground and we saw the mines. And that was a wonderful occasion. And then we traveled all the way back up to Germany. So, you know, here I am, a young girl traveling around here. It's amazing we were able to do that. But I never forgot it. Here's my family. When we got older, my dad's 70 years old here. My nephews, they have their own families now. And my niece over in front of me, and this my sister arranged for when one of my parents were in their 70s. My first oil painting, and I gave it to my grandmother on my dad's side. And when my grandma died, I got it back from her and went to collect it. Okay, and I'll tell you more. I went to Our Lady of Lourdes High School, which was the same building as my father went to school. It was then the Poughkeepsie High School. And again, I never thought it was very exciting. I had to take 3 years of Latin, 3 years of French. They were really academic. And the only nun that ever encouraged me, Sister John Mary, used to tell me about English literature and Latin. And I really enjoyed that. We painted the nuns' pottery, we decorated costumes for the plays. But I had no professional art training. So where did this art come from, right? But I was shocked to discover that I graduated 16th in the class with all boys. You know, boys on one side, girls on the other. And that's because we're always putting my sister said, our nose in the book. Here's something a lot of people don't know, that at 16 I became a nurse's aide. I put myself through college, 4 years. I worked on every floor in the hospital, so I learned a lot about nursing. Now, why didn't I go into nursing? Because I loved art, and I decided that's what I wanted to try. I got a New York State Regents scholarship, and later I applied for a National Defense loan. I had a community college degree for 2 years first in commercial art, and then later I went to State University in New Paltz in New York, across the bridge from where I live. And there, again, I had to stay extra years because they don't take transfer credits, a lot more now. But I was editor of the yearbook. Now, I was editor at the community college, and here I am, editor at the senior college. It was like my own portfolio. It's amazing. I didn't get paid in those days, but I learned a lot. But I remember my professor saying to me, you can't work at the hospital, you can't be a nurse's aide, you can't be working at Howard Johnson's and being editor and go to school. It's too much. I did end up in the hospital myself for being sick. And then later, he helped me get a scholarship. Would you believe a Lodge and Mason scholarship? These things are just rolling around and nobody applies for them. And he helped me get it. Otherwise, I would have never known. Well, when I graduated, all by myself, I went over to Europe the first time. In those days, Europe was $10 a day. And it's amazing. This is the letter I wrote to my mom and dad. That Amsterdam is lovely. I had a beautiful hotel room. People were very friendly. The men were very handsome. I remember I was a young girl. Many hippies and motorcycles. Today I went to the Heineken brewery. I had a few samples of Dutch beer. I also went to the Rijksmuseum in France House. So that was pretty amazing for me, my first time anywhere like that, away from home. Well, my first year I taught in one of the local schools, paid back my loan, would you believe, living in one little room. And then I said, I got to get out of here. I've got to see the world. I moved to Massachusetts, Boston, with girlfriends. And we lived right across from Fenway Park, where the big sicko sign was. And there was 4 of us in this room, which I really enjoyed. But I had to find a job. So in those days, you could have people help you find. You got to pay them money. But that's what I did. And they found me a job out in Blackstone Millville Regional School in Massachusetts, which is right on the border of Rhode Island. And I taught there for 4 years. But it was a brand new school, and we had no equipment. Beautiful school, no equipment. So, I had to run around and take borrow and steal what I could. So after 4 years there, I went to another school closer to Boston, called the Medway Junior Senior High School. And I was hired as the art director. Still a young girl, you see. And I love this picture, it's so funny. The guy with the big afro. And I was quite busy, as you can see. But I really enjoyed the kids. I would have loved to stay there. But Massachusetts always has these big tax cuts every maybe 10 years. And I had low seniority, so I had to go. And my lifetime friends, Linda Murphy and Kathy Collinshaw, who still write to me today. It's wonderful to have friends for so long. Now, I started a program at Penn State. I wrote to them and said, I can come back early. Can you give me an assistantship? And they did find one for me. I got my master's at Mass College of Art, finished there. It took forever, but I did finish. And then that's when I went to Penn State later. My niece and nephews worked. I loved working with them. I kept their work in a lot of my lectures, as you can see. Now, Penn State. I don't know if you recognize that dude in that. You know who that guy is? When your professor's Ralph. And there was only 5 or 6 of us, and we all palled around. It was a lot of fun. In fact, I didn't even remember everybody's name, Ralph. You helped me last night remembering them. One of our professors, famous, Brett Wilson, I quoted his work in a lot of my studies, even on Second Life, as you can see. He influenced me, plus the other professors. I went to Cleveland State University. Hey, that's not far from you, is it? 10 years. And there it was like a big factory. Remember Julie, my former student, Julie here. That's quite a few years ago. Julie D. Sienna. Now they have a brand new building in Cleveland. So that's what it looks like. Pretty boring. My colleagues at Cleveland State, Kathy Conyers, came to visit, even though she didn't teach there, and Betty Copeland. But when Betty left, I was all by myself. That only woman was really tough in those days. Until the new dean came in, and she lightened my load a little bit, but it wasn't easy. Well, Lonely Mary meets Bill, and you're not going to believe this. Professor Bill, the University of Dayton. I went down to check out the conference on hermeneutics. Hermeneutics, right? And Ralph and I both had to ground our dissertations in philosophy. And we had many courses on hermeneutics, the interpretation theory. So when I went down there, they said, okay, you can introduce the speakers. And that was good. They put me in the rectory, one of 3 women. It was okay, because there's all these men around. So that was fun. But the next year, he asked me if I wanted to get married. I'm not leaving my job. I just got here. He said, don't worry. He said, we can have long distance marriage. 8 years, back and forth, please, back and forth. And finally, he got a job at Case Western Reserve, and that was what he liked. In 2002, I went to Poland to the INSEAD Regional Conference, the International Society for Education Through Art. And my sponsor here, Marius Zamora, arranged for me to teach. Every time I go abroad to conference, I teach as well, and I try to stay longer and do research. And that's where I met very famous art education, Irina Lojar. And I really enjoyed working with them. My name in Russian, you see, all the birth records and all the marriage, whatever kind of records, they're all in Russian at the time. And this was a conference room at this particular conference. Well, I also got to meet my grandmother's ancestors in the little city of Stokrocki, which is over in eastern side of Poland, right near Ukraine. And this is the family I met through the Catholic Church. I had a sponsor who helped me travel around. He was the owner of the furniture factory, and he loved going around with me. I met my old relatives by the name of Kuklinski. And he said in Polish to the translator that he remembers the family that came to New York and left years ago. So this is my humble roots on one side of the family. On the other side of the family, my Stokrocki side came from the Black Forest right near Germany. Well, I did tell you I did a lot of studies, and here's the one that I did called the Green School. And children would draw their experiences. We went south of Poland, near Krakow, and we were hiking up in the mountains with the kids, those very young kids. And it was raining the whole time, so we were learning a lot about the Highlander culture. And they brought out these gigantic horns, and the kids really liked shooting on them and watching the Highlander blowing them. But you had all the folk stories. You had the storks in the sky, it's all the Catholic country. They would dump the kids down the chimney. That's the way they would tell you how kids were born. And here's a bear eating something. You can see the kids are really into bloody things. So the sheep. So kids all around the world at this age love that kind of stuff. So I was learning about my ancient culture. At the same time, we had no idea we were going to Auschwitz. Didn't want the kids, a concentration camp. And outside, when you walk into the camp, there's a sign in Polish, "Work hard and be free." Of course, that was a lie. But it was a depressing place. Now, I wasn't there on a rainy day, but I can imagine just how awful that place was. Cold, damp, just terrible. And without the green, the spirit really can't survive. So let's go to another PowerPoint. No, pictures are better than just talking heads, right? And my artwork, let's look at some of my research. My history is famous for doing a lot of ethnographic studies, one a year at least. And I had this wonderful saying outside my office: the teacher who works in the shadow of his or her temple among her followers gives not of her wisdom, but rather of her lovingness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of her wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own. In other words, we're all learning together. Now, when I did my dissertation at Penn State, it was in pottery. I taught ceramics for 10 years. And this kind of just fell in my lap at the last minute, of course. And Ken Vidal, my professor, said, well, you can always study my class in the summer. I said, fine, because I just love ceramics. And Ken was a very interesting man. He was kind of a guru teacher. He would go up to the students and bow to them, wabi sabi, good morning. And your plots were wabi sabi because they were rustic and wobbly, right? And he would look at mine and he would say, well, at least that's the way they want it to be. Because if you know anything about Zen, you have no control. And the pot does all the talking, not you. So this was one of the metaphors in my study, spheres of meaning, because this type of research is called qualitative description. In other words, you're always talking about the qualities of the event. You're just not counting numbers. And I, again, documented. This is not my picture, by the way. This is one of the students in the class. And I used their work, photographs, drawings, to illustrate the experience. The experience is number one. So here's the pottery shop at Penn State. Part of the context, which is important. A lot of things underground, as you can see. And I remember my professor saying, you can't praise, you can't forever. You got to say something a little bit negative. What wasn't he good at? And as I can't do that, I don't have permission to do that. I have to go to Ken and said, okay, they won't believe my study. They're too perfect. Maybe laugh. I said, do you mind if I talk about the little critters you find throughout the rooms? I talked about the bugs on the wall. He laughed. He said, Penn State, you go right ahead and add it, because those things coexist. And that was quite funny. But it was a wonderful experience. Now, these methods I used with my own students. Space mapping, for example. This was a map of on the left side, this is the ceramic studio. And who's sitting next to who? You can use that in your own teaching to see what the popular places are in your collection, who gets left out, things like that. And that's called a social grant. Okay? So that's very important. important strategy for teaching. And some of his aides, there's Ken in the middle, the older man, Dr. B, and then there was a Chinese guy up in the corner. He ran the kilns, and I think there was another guy by the name of Larry Jordan there who helped out. And then upstairs, too, what happened on another level was just a wonderful experience. And I still use this method for my students today, undergrads and grads. And later I was able to talk more about these events because I was studying other teachers. There's Ken on the right, teaching, and the students would tell me that they never forgot the pot that Ken helped them build. So they would ride on his hands as he was turning the wheel, and he would push and pull and help you understand. It's called patterning. And teachers do this all the time, with permission, of course. That's what a good teacher he was. Right, on the right. On the left is one of the first studies where at the Cleveland Art Institute, and the teacher's helping a little boy put his hand down, and she showed him how to trace. Until somebody does that with you, you don't know. You don't know how to hold a pen. You don't know how to hold scissors until someone shows you. And those kinds of things are very important. At the time, I called that laying on the hands, because I didn't know what it was called. Later on, I found out that the folk metaphor for something called patterning, which is, again, used all over the world. Now, here's a favorite thing of mine. You recognize this guy? Mm-hmm. John Michael, right? My first article ever published. John gave me his book, and I said, I'm having a hard time getting published. He said, well, I know, right? He said, you review my book, and I guarantee it'll get published. And he did. And I did the first publication of his work on the Lowenfeld lectures. You see how things all tie in nicely? And John was a wonderful man, so encouraging. We really loved him. And here's two other characters that influenced my research greatly. I used this method of art criticism that Edmund Feldman started in 1970. I still use it today. So what are those stages of art criticism? Do you know?
Description, analysis, synthesis, and judgment.
Yes.
You don't have to really go, you said you don't really have to go to judgment.
Right. Interpretation. It lies at every stage. Again, I still use it for even students' self-evaluation. They evaluate themselves. And then, of course, Elliot Eisner, qualitative research, all these years, it's very similar to art criticism, you know, the stages. So I use it a lot. But Elliot said it didn't matter if the situation was perfect. It was never finished. You're just writing about the experience. What is the theme of your experience? And that's how Elliot's work is so important in the field. Okay, up in Cleveland State now, not far from you guys, I started documenting teachers in action. Here's some of the studies. The one at Cleveland Museum of Art where parents were teachers. I was documenting the parents teaching as well. So exciting. And you see the parent in the box with his little son. They're making castles. Well, the parent got in the box with the kids, and the kids' point of view. And that's so important. When I was there, I also interviewed Sherman Lake, who is the director of the Art Museum. And I was told to do that by one of our editors in Art Education. So I was able to get another publication out of that. One of my favorite teachers, I was documenting master teachers. Favorite master teacher was Jane Summer. I wish she could have come. She's getting older now. And Jean always helped me when I needed some advice. I couldn't do it myself. We sat down and did it together. And here she's teaching her children at the Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School. And that was one of my studies. And you see on the right, she had these marvelous art education models where the kids can actually explore, and that became another study. One teacher, two studies. Another outstanding mentor of mine. Do you recognize this gal from last year? Edith Zimmerman, remember? She's wonderful. She helped me so many times. One summer, I followed my husband to Indiana University. He was there on a fellowship. And I wrote to him and I said, can I sit in your classes? Maybe I'll learn something. And I did. It was wonderful. And I didn't document their classes. I documented the work of Guy Hubbard, who was into computers. 3 classes in one summer. Well, later on, he had me driving the van with kids. It was so much fun. So I documented it. The students, parents, the teacher, and then a mixed class of adults as well. And I learned how to do computer graphics myself from the bottom up. Next year I was teaching at my school. So that's how you learn a lot. If you don't understand the situation, you don't have to. You can go on your student. You're number one student. Okay, so you're learning a lot as well. And don't be afraid to try that. And some of the other teachers in Cleveland that I documented on the left is Sandra Noble. I was supervising student teachers anyway. So I said, I better start documenting that. That's a lot of work, right, Julie? You know. And I still use Sandra Noble's videos today. I show them to my students. And have them do some coding and sampling. And they're really surprised sometimes to see how the kids react. Here she's doing her own version of like art criticism where the kids compare and contrast. Now there's always a study where you have nothing works out. And I call this extreme cases where it's really rough. And you say, what can we learn from this experience? The teacher tries so hard to get the kids to understand and follow through. Well, the kids don't like to read about art. And here they're saying to the teacher, I'd rather read about motorbikes than football. And she said, well, let's do a lesson on football. Before you know it, they're designing their own stadium, and she's giving them advice on super sculptures, which turned out to be a very good lesson in problem solving. So we call that extreme cases, just really tough. Everything doesn't work. This is a study that I put up on the internet. You know Kurt Riker? He was president of the Ohio Art Education Association one year. And I got to study him. Now this study has been up there on the internet for quite a while. And it's quoted a lot. And Kurt was just an amazing guy. You know, look at that classroom. Isn't that incredible? Pictures all over the wall, all in the cafeteria. The kids had blown up. Just amazing. Here he's having the students, like an art club, judge contest with him. Ninth graders judge contest. He gave his own models too as well. Here's Kurt. Well, let's see, 1987. We went to Ohio Art Education Conference, and Ralph, this is when you were, I think you were in charge this year. And here is Kurt and Amelia joined, and she took over one of our jobs at Cleveland State and we left. And there you are. We had kept the correspondence all those years. Finally, I get a sabbatical in 1989, and I go over to Rotterdam. Now these guys I met a couple of years earlier at an earlier INSEA conference, the International Society for Education Through Art, in Hamburg. And he said, someday you come visit me. And by golly, I did. And when I went there, I said, I want to study how you're handling the bicultural issues, because there's a lot of different nationalities there in Rotterdam. And there we thought, we studied Harry Burke, we picked them out. And Burke is Indonesian and Dutch. And I took the whole study and I put it up as an exhibition, an art exhibition. The kids did these wonderful collages here. And they wrote about it too, which is really amazing. Look at Prince. Prince in Holland, just amazing. You know, the popular culture is all over the world. One of the kids on the left, she's from Suriname, and she said her work, these are her words now, the contrast between the primitive original land and her new, what she called the luxury progress. She called the work the green and modern world. The one at the bottom is the young girl from Turkey, and then a Dutch boy is on the right, all the museums in Amsterdam. In 1992, my research finally made, I guess, an impact, and I was put up for the Mary Rouse Award, and this gal, her name was Lynn Galbraith, and now Baudet, helped support me. And I was really, really glad to get something like that, because it's really tough at Cleveland State when you're only a woman. You remember the day? I was only a woman. It was really tough. And I wrote about how I do the ethnographic research. A lot of listening, a lot of taking notes. Perseverance, you can't give up. You just got to keep on going back. And of course, you got to cooperate with everybody. It's not your words, it's everybody's. Later on, I started making these people co-authors because, you know, you need help when it comes to believability. Okay. Later on, I published a research book with Enid Zimmerman and another gal. Her name is Sharon Lockpeter. And I think it was one of the first books on research methods that was ever published by the NAEA. And of course, I still use it today. Then I was able to go on another sabbatical every 7 years or more. And I went to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I think Anna Mae Barbosa came to speak here. She was one of the previous winners. She was president again of INSEE. And I said, I'd really like to come down and see what you're doing. She said, of course, you know, and she arranged for me to teach there. And of course, besides just teaching, you get a chance to go traveling in many different places. But Sao Paulo is the largest city in the world, and it was dirty. And I remember being up there getting a paper at one of the corporations, coughing and coughing and coughing, because my room was over one of the busiest streets in Sao Paulo. Would you believe they sent up a bottle of bee stingers? Bee stingers. Boy, did that clear my throat from them. Amazon? Nothing like homemade medicine, right? Okay. So one of the studies I did with the kids was I asked the kids to draw their favorite thing. Well, guess what it was? What is it? Soccer. Yeah, over everything, soccer. In fact, last month of school, it's all soccer. All soccer. So every lesson was related to soccer. I remember the boys telling me, hey, you see that? I had the paper arranged the wrong way. You don't have that right. You got to flip it this way. Because the bicycle kick means the kid's flipping in midair. So I was learning about soccer. I didn't know very much about soccer. Then we went to Rio de Janeiro, and the kids were doing, again, their own interpretations of things that they love. This is a gal's work. And they really love fashion. They like to look beautiful. And look at the sun. The sun got lipstick on, sun's got eyelashes. It's just wonderful. And down below here, you've got everybody going to the beach. It's just So much fun. But you learn about the culture and their mores when you're with the people all the time. Then all of a sudden I started comparing all my studies. This is a big one. With Edith Zimmerman again, Mary Paisley. She is now in Columbia University. At the time she was at New Paltz. And we did a study of 3 areas in the country, middle school teachers. New York, Indiana, Phoenix, and compared results and see what they had in common. Well, would you believe all teachers, we had no control over this. They all used Romare Bearden for motivation in some of their projects, every one of them. And they did a lot of studio methods, combining lecture and demonstration. And of course, constant instruction. Well, things happen in well, anyway, things haven't changed. It just shows you that all these years we're still studio. You can't get rid of it. It's wonderful. We don't want to leave it. Okay. I got to do studies with my own students, graduate students, now at Arizona State University. This is wonderful because this teacher was doing a study of math making, and her kids were combining different characters with animals. Would you believe I have her student in my class now. She's student teaching. Now, she was a middle school student here, and she was one of the stars in the class. This is her version of animals. Would you believe I'll be going into her class in a couple of weeks? She's a teacher now. She's going to be doing the same lesson, and we're going to document it. Isn't that a different generation? Isn't that cool? Here's some of the kids and their versions, and we interviewed them. They had a great time. And this script, turning an ethnographic script into a play, is fantastic. I did get the publisher, and I wrote my own play based on that. And it was called The Lizards of Art. So it was exciting to get motivated and inspired by my own students. You know, it's a kind of give and take thing Enid tells us, conducting all these types of research. You know, it's kind of an assessment too, because you're documenting everything. You've got to bring out the evidence. And Enid called this authentic assessment. So, hey, do you notice this character in Victor Lowenfeld? And I always thought that Victor Lowenfeld, he would love this type of research because he used to talk to the kids at their level, right? Here he's talking to a kid about dentistry. And I used that for my lecture, Lowenfeld lectures that John and Michael helped me with. And I wrote about my work with the Navajo. I did a lot of work with the Navajo. Okay, I also went to Barcelona, and that was another sabbatical, documenting the popular culture art there. And you can see the kids are really excited about motorcycles, okay? And then you've got blanks. I didn't even know what these groups were. And they all modeled their work after this very famous work on the last famous artist, Don Quixote, right? So they were updating Quixote's style, which is collage-like. And, hey, who are these guys? You know who they are? There's Julia, you know, and Julie Lindsay, Meryl Dion, a wonderful gal. And they inspired me to to work for the Women's Caucus, and I said, oh, I don't do much research with women. What? How many women have you documented, empowered? I said, yeah. So she said, yeah, come on, you're a feminist, you don't really realize it. And Julia she had kept all the correspondence, Julie Lindsay, right up here, for what, 30 years? And she sent them to me, love cards. And I said, I can't believe it. She loved the Native American works and kept all that and sent me, if not the original copies. So I said, you've got to come up and you've got to present this paper with me. See, I'm empowering somebody else who taught me the value of being a mentor. In 2007, I went to Penn State to get an Outstanding Alumni Award. And again, I was shocked. But, I went and enjoyed it very much. And at the end of this little presentation, I want you to know that being life is round. Images of full roundness help us to collect ourselves, permit us to confer an initial institution on ourselves and confirm our being, our life. Everything round invites a caress. So I wanted to thank all my mentors at Penn State. Yeah. Okay, how are we doing? Good? Okay. I have lots of PowerPoint. Which one do you want to hear? Native American, Turkish, interdisciplinary, virtual world? What do you want to hear?
Virtual world.
Or do you want to hear? I say a lot better this summer. This is my new book, okay? It just came out last year. This is the beginning of it. The cover. Do you recognize that place? Where is that? You don't know that place? It's in Rome. You don't know that place? The Sistine Chapel? Can't hear it, yeah. Good, thank you. Well, when do you get a chance to get that close to the Sistine Chapel? There's one of the avatars getting close to the painting also, like Leonardo. You change your camera around, you can see the sky without even moving. But at the bottom, you have all the Raphael's tapestries too. It's an incredible place. This was run by Vassar College. But Vassar College took it down, but there's another version. But you can see the internet, all the pictures are still up there for all the people who were inspired by that place. Vassar College has a wonderful art history. Okay, the book is all about digital literacy. Literacy is communication. And we communicate not just by text anymore. Chat, instant message, gestures, the avatars are jumping all over the place. Voice, music, YouTube videos. Everything all connected to these virtual worlds. I wrote about them before the NAEA became policy, paper. This is my place on Second Life when I started. One of my former students mentored me, and for $100 for the year, this is what I started with. This is my art arc. Does it look like an arc? Sort of. Okay. An ark is a place where you store treasures, right? So my students go on treasure hunts all over Second Life. That's how I teach. And I teach a course called Digital Ethnography, and they go documenting avatars, and they interview them from all over the world. Portugal, Spain. You'd be surprised. And then those guys become the teachers. They don't need me. The avatars teach them. And of course, I document everything on the slide show. This is Steve Carpenter at Penn State. He teaches also on Second Life. And you can have more than one avatar. You can have 5 avatars now. You can be a car, a robot, It's a lot of fun. I was a cat when I started. I did tell you everything is linked, Twitter, Facebook. We have conferences up here. And we'll start in the audience, and then all of a sudden, you open up the metaverse, and you see the speaker close up. And then all Twitter remarks are coming down the side of your page, instant messages. And you've got to be able to handle that all at once. That's not easy. But you can do it. You see. Oh, there's that wonderful Christine Chapel in that chapter. This I just love. My doctoral student just passed her dissertation. Documented Burning Man in real life. Did you ever go to Burning Man? Burning Man. And she did it in Second Life. This is called Burn 2. So a lot of times you can start planning it in Second Life because you have all the coordinates, architecture, and then you can build it in real life. A lot of architecture students up here. Another graduate student did a study of the Pet Society because her own kids worked with her. Now the Pet Society is not up there anymore. You choose your own pet. You decorate it. You decorate your own room, and then you meet your friends. This was all at a summer program at a local community center. This gal is now in England. She's studying, doing her dissertation. So this was wonderful. The kids today are using Club Penguin, right? The same rip-off as they're charging them. And also Minecraft is big for the kids. We have a colleague not far from you, University of Dayton. Have any of you met Nancy Park? Anybody met her? I met her a long time ago. She was up in Niagara Falls. University of Dayton. And she was doing studies with their students on Peacemaker. Did you ever work with the game Peacemaker? Never. If you're in Israel, it's where it started. That's where the game is big. And boy, could we use this in the Middle East now. The whole study is on the Peacemaker. David Gill taught at Youngstown State University. And he was big on computers. He did all his work in Blender and Unity. Uploaded it on Second Life. This is Grandpa's house. So if you want to renovate your own grandparents' house, you could try as well. But you don't have to do it. It's quite hard. We have wonderful build tools up on Second Life. This is something I love. Look at this. Working with senior citizens. Now, we're all getting older. They got all the money. There's more baby boomers retiring left and right. You can learn from them as well. My neighbors, this gal in the back, she went to Art Box. She just loved The Simpsons, and she's crazy about orange hair. You guys know about it. She was a little bit upset that her computer wasn't working so well. But this place is called Art Box, and it's the most popular place on Second Life. And these people said, boy, this place is sure odd. But they worked with me. This is a guy who lives down the street from me, 80 years old. He's bald in real life. Look at those tattoos on him. Isn't that amazing? They were really shocked about how sophisticated Second Life can be. These guys were former computer workers on Unity, those great big things they used to have. So they were amazed that you can do this, and boy, do you like to take that chair. If you want to see a good YouTube, because everything is filmed on Second Life, go see Macbeth Fly Through. You don't have to act, you can just fly through these places, and they're gorgeous. Now, when I was in Taiwan 2 years ago, I applied for a Fulbright, and I was teaching on Second Life, 50 undergrads in one classroom, one computer classroom. And I put them in teams, and they did a wonderful job doing digital stories. But we also got to do an exhibition. Now, this is not my place, this is somebody else. the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. You remember that place, Ralph? And June Julian and her graduate students started this, invited us to have a show. Taiwan. The kids picked the title, Taiwan Now, and we uploaded all of their artwork. And here's some of them here in their crazy little avatars. They really enjoyed it. You hit the artwork and up pops their response about their work. You can do that as a teacher now. The kids, if they can't go because they've got to be 18, you can put their artwork. Here we have young children. She wrote her dissertation with students from the Culinary Art High School in Philadelphia, and they did anime. As you can see, one of the avatars is looking at it, checking it out. But she interviewed the teacher on YouTube, which is another aspect. You don't have, again, you don't have to stay in Second Life. You can go to other places. My graduate student, who just got her dissertation, another one, wanted to do studies of museums. You know, there's over 400 museums on Second Life, big, little, small, different countries. And they don't have to be, remember, a square building, a rectangle. A whole installation, the Spencer Art Museum. Amazing. Sometimes you have works of art on the left where you are very critical. And this is a work where they're talking about men, how they pose women as puppets. So the name of the work is called The Puppet Master. So that was pretty amazing. You can put your artwork up there too. At any one of those shows, you just have to contact. Join a group, and you can contact the owners. My graduate student here on the right, Betty Schleicher, did her dissertation interviewing, I think it was 10 artists and 10 art educators on Second Life. Later on, she only had to do just the art educators. That was enough. Sometimes we do too much. And she finished last year. She started her own business. She does dyeing. And she has her blog. She sells her things. But here, she's teaching how to dye on Second Life. Do you know the word cochineal? What does that mean? Kosher. What does it mean? What does it mean? No, that's something else. The bugs. And where are those bugs from? Mexico, Arizona, and Mexico. They're from the prickly pear. And she's showing how to dye. Now that she's graduated, she can teach her full time. And I got to be honest, not everybody likes Second Life, so I had to put this chapter in. Got to be fair, because some people have a real tough time in the beginning, and that's to be expected. There's plenty of tutorials to help you. Avatar making is a big thing. You can put artwork on your skin. You can walk around as a living work of art, just wrapped around your body. So cool. And she interviewed 101 avatars. This is a big exhibit on Second Life. You know, musicians make more money in Second Life than they do in real life. Tips, 24 hours a day. They're dancing. They're playing their saxophone. You got it. There's all kinds of art and music up there. This gal, some of you in the morning met her. I was talking about Zinnia's work. This is her island. She does fabrics and she floats into the air. And this morning, remember, I had that scarf that she gave to me in real life on Second Life. She was my roommate last year in the summer. I went to a conference with her. Remember, networking is a big thing on these virtual worlds. She was my roommate. Okay. The time on these students just loved it. So, the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, all these partnerships and digital literacies just helped you grow. Is that enough? We want more.
When you started about this, I said, no, it's been an hour. So.
Yeah. Well, I have plenty others. I think that Julia and Ralph are going to put them up on the internet so you can see them. And I want to thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed meeting you this morning. Okay, thank you. I need to take this. Anybody going to take a single shot? We need a picture. We've been working for 3 or 4 days together.